Welcome, everyone. People are still coming in. Welcome to the first ever annual War Abolisher Awards presented by World Beyond War. My name's David Swanson. I'm the executive director of World Beyond War. Want to point out that there should be at the bottom of your screen a globe icon and the word interpretation, depending on your Zoom setup. And if you want to hear this in Japanese, you'll want to click there and select Japanese. If you do nothing, if you don't select English, you will hear English. Rachel, do you want to give those instructions in Japanese?
会を始める前に同時通訳機能のご案内です。Zoom のアイコンにある地球儀のアイコンを押していただくと、英語か日本語の通訳を選ぶことができます。携帯でご覧になっている方は、携帯の下にある3つの点をタップすることで、同時通訳機能を選ぶことができます。同時通訳機能についてわからないこと、問題が発生している場合はチャットにてお知らせください。また、登壇者へのご案内です。通訳の方のためにできるだけゆっくり、そしてはっきりとお話しいただくようお願いいたします。
Thank you. I want, before we get started, to introduce our musical guest who's going to perform for us. But Rachel, Ron is having a little trouble restarting his video. It's telling him the host has shut it off. So if you have any clue how he can get his video back on, that would be wonderful. To give you all an idea of the format today, I'm going to be introducing each of three wonderful introducers who are in turn going to introduce the recipients of three different War Abolisher Awards, and they are going to make brief presentations, and we're going to have music from Ron Korb, whose video is working now. Thank you, Rachel. And both at the beginning and at the end of this event. And then at the very end, we are going to have breakout rooms. There, you're going to be able to choose one of three places to go, or multiple. Spend some time in one and go to another to meet and talk with and ask questions of our incredible award recipients. You will agree with me how incredible they are when you hear their stories. But first, we are very, very privileged to have with us Ron Korb. He is a winner of numerous awards, a Grammy nominated, a flutist based in Canada. He has an album called World Cafe. He has a website called ronkorb.com, RONKORB.com. Ron Korb, the virtual floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, David. And to our Japanese guests, konnichiwa, or actually, I guess for you, it's konbanwa. And for me, of course, it's ohayo gozaimasu, because it's 8 o'clock in the morning. That's pretty early for a musician to play, that's for sure. But not for working folk. I'd like to start, I'll play a piece called Floating Bridge, and I'm playing it on this Chinese flute, but actually I'm using some techniques from Japanese music as well.
Ron, you have to see the standing ovation. You can't hear it because everybody's muted, but that was beautiful. Thank you. I want to introduce our first introducer of the morning, afternoon, evening here, Ann Wright, who hardly needs an introduction for most of us. Amazing, nonstop anti-war peace activist and author and speaker and advocate for whistleblowers and military and diplomatic veteran and all around force for a better world. Ann Wright, take it away.
Why, thank you, David, and welcome to everyone from all around the world. It's wonderful to see everyone, and I'm so honored to be the person to give the World Beyond War Lifetime Organizational War Abolisher Award to a wonderful, wonderful organization, the Peace Boat. Now, how about that? A boat that floats around the world, taking 1,000 people to 20 countries every 3 months. I mean, if you haven't been on it, you've got to sign up for it because it is really, really incredible. It has people that come on board as lecturers, and that's how I first got to know the Peace Boat, because they were kind enough to invite me to speak about issues of U.S. militarism in Asia and the Pacific. So when you come on board the boat, you have people that are speaking about social justice issues, peace issues, human rights issues, to prepare you to go into the some 20 ports that you'll be going on each one of these voyages. And this has been going on for a long time, like 35 years. The Peace Boat has been moving around the world, bringing messages of peace. And the first message is when that big ship that has 1,000 people on it comes into port, a massive, massive ship that has Peace Boat written on it. Now, how about that for advertising peace? We're going to be able to see that boat in just a few moments, and then we will have the wonderful founder and director of the Peace Boat, Yoshioka Tatsuya, who will be receiving the award, the Lifetime Organizational War Abolisher Award. Please, so let's see the Peace Boat. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anne, thank you to introduce us. But anyway, first of all, that I really would like to say thank you so much for the World Beyond War and organizers. It is a really big honor for us. And because this is the first time that this award, right? So it is it means that this is a historical moment. We received that, and already we received this trophy in Tokyo. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And also, I would like to say many friends all over the world and partners now they're sending us that big encouragement and also the congratulation message. I really would like to say thank you so much on behalf of the Peace Boat. It is a huge support and the power to continue to this Peace Boat project and our global voyage. I think that is a quite a symbolic moment that we received this award. That is my feeling. Because the few weeks ago, that the so-called end of the Afghan war, but what's happened there is clearly the indicate us or prove us that war cannot create a peace. I think this is now we are sharing very symbolic moment to really, we have to feel this reality, war cannot create a peace, and also the time to really share with the people all over the world this truth. I think this is already very clear evidence of we cannot make a peace by war, by military power, and also that hatred. We really, how to create now the peace is a very important moment. We have to start to work together toward the abolish war. I have started Peace Boat with my friends in 1983, long time ago, 80 years ago. I cannot imagine about that Peace Boat can continue such long time. And however, our program and our activity is continuing until now. The reason why is maybe that's we success to create a lot of the friends and network to all over the world to really make efforts to make a peace. Because I learned the Japanese history, we have also terrible experience as a Japanese in Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and also conventional bombing in Japan. But on the other hand, we really commit terrible aggressor and invasion in other Asian countries. So it is our experience itself is a very symbolic tragedy of the war. And also my father's, mother's voice and my grandmother's voice is telling us war is terrible. And that is destroy our society and also destroy our kids and also grandchildren future. So, and the Peace Boat, the method, or let's say tool, is I really recognize through this global voyage that it is very important to understand that and to learn what's going on in the world, especially in the conflict zone or refugee camp or all over the world, that the reality of the war is that we really have to feel and experience. Otherwise, always that the war is abstract and always peace is abstract. No. There's a people is suffering, people is killing, very bloody. And that is the truth of the war. There is no justice. And that's anybody can visit that the conflict zone and meet with the victims or victims' families everybody can understand that this is not a solution. But still, the many governments or politicians is believing about the war is a solution, military is necessary. But what's going on in the world? On the other hand, climate crisis is how many people killing, and COVID is killing how many people, and why we have to spend the huge money and the resource for the war, not to the pandemic, not to the climate crisis action. I think now peace movement is facing the very important moment, I think. That is we have to really unite with the people working for the action of the climate crisis, and also for the pandemic, and also the fight against the poverty. I think now that there is no the distinction or the border between peace movement or environmental movement or the disaster management. And no, I think that is all this, the movement or activities should be together. And we have to achieve that a real peace and also sustainable world together. I think pandemic, coronavirus is told us we need a people. We have to connect. And peaceful experience is that connectivity create a friendship and a mutual understanding and stop the hatred and create a peace. So I think now is a very good moment for us and for all of you to really start to think about that, what we can do together. For example, of course, and we will continue to peace education and also peace action and abolition nuclear weapon with ICANN, and we are doing that. But on the other hand, we are planning to build eco ship. This is we are using the ship. So why not? We try to make a full nuclear, renewable, the energy ship. That is the one of the concrete solution. But in that case, we have to work with other field of the people, right? We have to work with a renewable energy expert, and also we have to work with environmentalists, and also that is the expert in all over the world, I think. And also we have to work with the people, the expert of the finance, right? So I think that is we have to create an innovative peace movement together beyond the field or beyond the border. I mean, not national border. I mean that beyond the expertise, and work together. So I think I remember very well that 1999, maybe quite a lot of people remember about that Hague appeal for peace. And at that time, they had many people remember, I think. And very important message that I learned. That is a time to abolition war. Unfortunately, we couldn't achieve yet after 20 years. But I really would like to say again, the time to abolish war, time to abolish the nuclear weapon, time to abolish a war, time to abolish a military. I think now the time is to seriously think about that. And unfortunately, we cannot see each other directly. But that's why now very important for us more and more that we should promote and connect to each other and create that the next step. And I think now the many people start to recognize that we cannot work by ourselves. And that is what we learned in these days, especially in these 2 years, the coronavirus situation. So I would like to share with you one of the quite the expression. She's my friend, that Krishna Figueres, and she's the icon of the COP25, the Paris Agreement. And the favorite word is stubborn optimism. I like that word. We have to be with this word, stubborn optimism, and abolish nuclear weapon, and abolish war, and abolish military for the real sustainable planet, for our planet. Thank you very much. We are very, very happy. Thank you.
Thank you. I wish you could hear everyone cheering. You have to see them. Terrific, wonderful presentation and wonderful award recipient. We couldn't be prouder to be able to give this first award to Peace Boat. I now want to bring on John Rohr to introduce our next award recipient. John Rohr is a board member of World Beyond War. He is a physician who is dealing with the health threat of war. He's a peace educator, a peace activist, an unarmed civilian protector, all around embodies everything World Beyond War is trying to do. John Rohr, take it away.
Well, thank you, David, and thank you, Yoshioka. I'm so energized after seeing all that Peace Boat has done. I'd heard about it many times, but I've never felt the energy that I'm feeling from all you from Peace Boat here today. And it's just terrific. You know, I don't think people support war so much because they like killing and destroying things, but because they don't see an alternative. And we've all been educated to believe that no matter how much we want peace, that if there are really bad guys out there trying to hurt us, warriors are the only one that can save us. And that's what makes this next award so special for me. Since Mohandas Gandhi and others began imagining something like an army of nonviolent soldiers to stop riots in India in the 1920s, there have been visionaries who have resurrected that idea and put together various units of volunteers for the purpose of protecting people from violence without using violence in return. These groups have numbered in the many dozens, and I have worked with several of them over the years and been very impressed at how effective they can be at preventing harm. But unfortunately, all have remained relatively small and out of the mainstream. But in 2002, Mel Duncan and David Hartsough decided to do something about that by founding the Nonviolent Peaceforce, the first attempt to create a modern organization of professional unarmed peacekeepers. And that has evolved into one of the largest groups practicing what is now referred to as Armed Civilian Protection, or UCP. The war system is altogether dependent on people believing that organized violence is essential for protecting them and human rights. With his birthing, nurturing, and advocacy for the Nonviolent Peaceforce, and further developing the concept of UCP, Mel has dedicated his life to proving that violence is not always necessary for the protection of civilians. We have alternatives to militarism that are effective. He has worked tirelessly at so many levels to see his idea come to fruition. Mel was involved in every aspect of the creation of NP. He has visited every site multiple times to assure that the international and local personnel were being well cared for. I've seen him return from those trips exhausted by the travel, and then met women in South Sudan, empowered and grateful because he made the effort. He has painstakingly planned multiple conferences to assure that stakeholders make good note of practices that work and what does not. The fact that UCP is now recognized by the United Nations as an essential part of peacekeeping is in no small part due to Mel's almost 7 years of work, often away from his family, directly advocating at the United Nations in New York. It is with great pleasure that I personally, and on behalf of the 75,000 person World Beyond War community, present this David Hartsough Individual Lifetime War Abolisher Award of 2021 to Mel Duncan.
David, it's time for the video.
Okay, here you go.
The majority of fatalities in conflict were soldiers. And we fast forward 100 years and the majority of fatalities are actually civilians. And so the way we approach peacekeeping at the beginning of the 20th century, the majority of fatalities in conflict were soldiers. And we fast forward 100 years and the majority of fatalities are actually civilians. And so the way we approach peacekeeping and civilian protection has to shift. In a place like South Sudan, where since December of 2013, a very serious civil war has displaced millions of people and tens of thousands of people have been killed. When women are moving out to collect firewood or to collect water or other things that they need, they're often targeted for sexual violence as a way to use rape as a weapon of war. In most cases, we see no incidents of violence as long as they're with a protective accompaniment team.
It was quite a surprise. People with weapons coming in saying like, you guys go. And we said like, we're not leaving. They would hit the women and children. If we had a gun in those instances, we were like an armed peacekeeper, we probably would have been killed.
Are we back?
Yes.
No?
Is Rosemary with us? You might have lost her. Oh, there she is.
Yes. I met Nonviolent Peaceforce, if I may call it that, before I got to meet Mel Duncan. Because I was one of those people that were looking for how civilians can make an impact in reduction of war, in reduction of armed conflict in our own communities. And in that process, I found Nonviolent Peaceforce. And it was with great pleasure that many years later, I got to meet one of the founding people of Nonviolent Peaceforce. And one of the things that I learned, even within the first 3 months of joining Nonviolent Peaceforce, is that the objectives that have been set by the organization, reducing violence, bringing in structures, helping the structures that reduce violence in communities, is about people. And when I met Mel Duncan, I then understood why that became one of the foundations of why Nonviolent Peaceforce is about people, because Mel Duncan is about people. He's got amazing skills to make relationships individually, collectively, at all spheres of life. And it was such a pleasure to see that reflected in the organization that I was working with. one of the things that I learned in my time with Mel Duncan is to recognize the impact that various people have made in Nonviolent Peaceforce. And in recognizing that contribution, I saw it in Mel Duncan last year. Mel called me and said, could you come to the United States? We're having a situation where I think unarmed civilian protection could make an impact. And this is after the death of George Floyd. And I got an opportunity to spend time with Mel Duncan during that period of time. And it increased my love and understanding of the role that our colleagues play in Nonviolent Peaceforce, who are nationals of the countries that we work in. As John said, Nonviolent Peaceforce works in Iraq, and it works in Myanmar, works in South Sudan. And we respect that and work closely together. It was a learning experience for me to actually work with Mel Duncan and see, as a national of the United States, what it took for him to be able to put in unarmed civilian protection at the forefront of all the work that he was doing. And this is something I have respected. Mel Duncan has worked in all spheres within Nonviolent Peaceforce. He's walked the walk and talked the talk. He has come to the fields that we are working in and spent time with us, even as he then goes off to the United Nations and makes presentation and everywhere in between. I found this year, Mel Duncan reached out to me in a very special way. February of this year in Myanmar, the military government had a coup and overturned the results that were of the elections of November last year. And even as the team was trying to collect that information, I wasn't really surprised. Mel Duncan was one of the people who reached out to me. Mel Duncan reads a lot, or if you know him, you know that. He's connected in very special ways. He's so empathetic and engaged and involved in the work that people do. And he asked, how is the team? How are our partners? Even before everybody knew what was going on. And that carries the work that we do, makes it easy, because then we are not alone. We do this work, we do it all as a team. And Mel Duncan is central to that team that we have put together. And I say it especially, I remember discussing with Mel Duncan the principles of the organizations of nonviolence and nonpartisanship and primacy of actors, which we have been practicing in Myanmar for a long time. And everything just became so confused with our partners, with the team. How do we continue to be nonpartisan? How do we continue to be nonviolent? How do we keep on talking about primacy of actors? Who are these actors? These are the questions that we're discussing as a team. Mel Duncan, in his amazing, quiet way, brought to us Nobel Peace Prize winners who had walked the walk to come and talk with us. We are a very small team. And sometimes people wondered, are we really making a big impact? Until we talked to these Nobel Prize winners who talked to us as friends because we are connected with Mel Duncan. And all those discussions have enabled us, even as the coup moves on, even as Myanmar's conflict moves closer and closer to more violence as the response to the conflict. These principles have held us together because we had that initial conversation. I feel with Mel Duncan that I always so much respect those ones who say that they have climbed on the shoulders of giants so that they can go high. With Mel Duncan, I have instead reflected and learned something else, that a regular person, a normal person like you and I, it is actually Mel Duncan, can grow and become one of those giants and using that position of giants, open up doors and opportunities for others to grow and climb on his shoulders so that others can also reach the sky. It is my privilege to have known Mel Duncan for a long time professionally. I think one of the best things I can say is that I feel he's my friend. With all these amazing things going on, I will always take that for me. And I would like to ask Mel Duncan to congratulate him for this award. You definitely have the Rosemary Kabaki Award. It is not an international award, but you have it in my heart. And it is with great pleasure that I am a part of this award that you're receiving from the David Hasbro. Mel Duncan.
Thank you, Rosemary. And I point out that Rosemary is speaking to us from the border between Thailand and Myanmar. Thank you for your courageous leadership. I also want to say thank you to Ron for starting us out today with such grace and beauty. We always have to remember that. Thanks to War Beyond War, World Beyond War for this award. And I'm honored to share this recognition with my friends Yoshioka and Mary Joyce and our other allies at Peaceboat, as well as with the Save Sinjajevina, sorry if I mispronounced that, in your powerful organizing. I'm gratified to receive an award named for my dear brother, David Hartsough. Our fateful connection 22 years ago at the Hague Appeal for Peace radically changed my life as well as that of many others. Yet I'm somewhat reticent to accept any individual award. While I acknowledge my contributions, I am intimately aware that my work would be insignificant if it were not part of a creative, courageous, and expanding community. I accept this award on behalf of the unarmed civilian protectors who are providing protective accompaniment to women as they venture into the bush to collect firewood. I accept this award on behalf of the women's protection teams in South Sudan, who organize across tribal lines to confront military commanders and demand that the soldiers stop sexual and gender-based violence. And I accept this award on behalf of the hundreds of civilians in Mindanao who monitored and enforced a ceasefire engagement or agreement that led to a comprehensive peace agreement. And I accept this award on behalf of the mothers in Sri Lanka who went to the camps in the jungle to retrieve their children who had been abducted to be child soldiers. And I accept this award on behalf of our civilian protectors who today, at this very moment, shelter in a safe house in Myanmar. I accept this award on behalf of the young men in North Minneapolis in the United States who left the influence of gangs to provide nonviolent protection at the local primary school. I accept this on behalf of the thousands now of unarmed civilian protectors who have worked sometimes in very sparse and rough situations. And I also accept this on behalf of the men and women who presently educate at the UN, at ASEAN, and at other governmental agencies that one doesn't need guns to protect civilians. In fact, those guns make people less safe. And I accept this on behalf of thousands of our co-creators of Nonviolent Peaceforce who answer emails, who keep up the database, who organize events, who donate money, who provide training, who raise money, who pay bills, who buy insurance, who keep the books, and all those other tasks that often go uncited, but that allow us to keep working. And finally, I accept this award on behalf of our ancestors who have given us so much and are pulling for us right now. Unarmed civilian protection is growing and it works in some of the most violent places on our planet. There are now over 60 non-governmental organizations that are doing this work in 25 different areas, and that number grows. The most important thing that we bring, despite all the strategy and the methodology, the most important thing that we bring is our presence. Our presence. I was deeply disturbed 2 weeks ago when Secretary General Guterres grimly warned the UN General Assembly that, quote, "We are on the edge of an abyss and moving in the wrong direction." Let us not avert our gaze from that abyss. That edge is narrow, but if we look closely, it is verdant. And if we continue to fix our gaze and look into that abyss, we see cracks, we see glimmers. And through those glimmers, we see the reflection of people like those honored today and millions, literally millions more of us who with no particular title or prestige are co-creating loving and sustainable communities in harmony with all beings on our planet. We have everything that we need right here and right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you, Rosemary. Wonderful, wonderful organization. Look forward to talking further in the breakout rooms and to everyone's help in spreading the word and support for Mel's work and for Nonviolent Peaceforce. I want to introduce now our third and final introducer of the morning, afternoon, and evening, without whom there would be no World Beyond War. Leah Bolger is the president of the board of World Beyond War. She's leader of our Closed Bases campaign. She hardly needs an introduction for most of you. Leah Bolger, take it away.
Thank you so much, David. First of all, I want to thank you, though, for coming up with this incredibly great idea to have a War Abolisher of the Year award and to learn more about these incredible groups. When we announced the award and open, nomination period, and we got so many incredible nominees, it was very difficult to decide. But most of all, not only recognize these groups, but bringing light and showing the world of all the great work that's being done all over the place. It's really rewarding and inspirational and very exciting to be here with you today. Thank you. So when World Beyond War looked at ways to dismantle the institution of war, we identified military bases as a significant factor in not only facilitating war, but making war more likely. For decades, indigenous peoples around the world have been harmed by military forces. Their land has been stolen and their property destroyed. They have had to abandon their homes and had their livelihoods taken from them. And their local environments have been devastated by toxic chemicals and other destruction. World Beyond War is so pleased to bestow our first annual War Abolisher of the Year award to the Civic Initiative Save Sinjajevina Association, who have literally put their bodies on the line to prevent a military base from being created on their land. I'm not going to take any more time to tell you about their work. Instead, it's my pleasure to now introduce Pablo Dominguez, who will tell you more about the courageous efforts of these incredible people. Dr. Pablo Dominguez is an environmental anthropology senior researcher at the GEOD Laboratory, a mixed unit of research of the French National Council for Scientific Research and the University of Toulouse. He has provided scientific and politological advice and support to the association from the early beginning of the struggle. Thank you, Pablo.
Thank you. I hope you hear me well. Welcome to this talk that we're going to give about the story of Sinjajevina. It's mainly the protagonist of it from the ground that I'm going to talk. I'm just going to introduce this happening in Montenegro. a little country of southeastern Europe that turned out with the 2021 War Abolisher Award by World Beyond War, to who we could not be more grateful, and be here joining all of you, hearing these amazing stories from which we're learning already so much, and we're definitely going to go on learning, to tell, in our case, our work of Save Sinjajevina Association to defend their communal pasture lands from military land grabbing, and the project that ourselves have into the future to consolidate the no-go zone to the military. Because this is the true story of a group of local people, very poor, marginalized societies in mountains of Montenegro, who nevertheless strongly resisted the establishment of a NATO military ground that promised to destroy the livelihood of over 250 farming families that had sustained their lives for centuries in a true biocultural jewel in a UNESCO protected area. It was a huge tragedy at social and ecological level that these heroes reached to stop for now, but that nowadays still in danger, as the military plan is, at least officially, only in standby, thanks to these heroes, but possibly able to call off a law that inaugurated this zone. So we'll talk now about how it happened and what are our plans, to get any feedback from anybody of you. But before that, just I'll introduce the people will talk. But before that, please, David, if you may play the video now. It's just 60 seconds, and it can give a context to everybody. Thanks. Yeah, so there you have a little bit of context. Let me just introduce you to Petar Glomesic, a Save Sinjajevina key member and one of its main spokesmen, as well as a Sinjajevina documentary film director, who will speak first to give an overview of the context in which the struggle situates itself, and then will be followed by Milan Sekulovic, journalist and recently elected president of the Save Sinjajevina Association, who will provide the details of the maneuvers and techniques, including communicative ones, used during the resist camp that stopped the military intervention last year. And finally, Persida Jovanovic, daughter of Sinjajevina, like Milan, who's finalizing her master's in political science and helps her family farm in the pastorlands every year, and is a perfect representative of a Sinjajevina in defense of his family's land. Please, Petar, go ahead.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really honored to be given the opportunity to be here today with all of these exceptional and deserving people, and of course to be the part of the team to receive this very significant and precious award, and to share with you an important story from my country, from Montenegro. For those who do not know, Montenegro is the smallest republic of former Yugoslavia, situated in Western Balkans, with access to the Adriatic Sea. It is a very tiny country, just 620,000 people. But that country has an amazing history and tradition. And during the last 2 decades, it has become a very popular tourist destination. Sinjajevina mountain in the northern part of the country is the stage of our story. It is the second largest pastureland in Europe at around 2,000 meters of altitude. And for millennia, it has been used by shepherds between June and October every year. They are coming from their villages situated in the valleys around this highland plateau. Some of them even come from remote areas and walk for several days with their flocks and herds to reach the meadows. Sinjajevina really represents an extremely rare ecosystem with thousands of plant species, which is full of wildlife. It is part of UNESCO Tara River Basin Biosphere Reserve, surrounded by several national parks and even 2 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. And itself, it's planned with EU as a Natura 2000 protection area. The melting snow from this mountain actually is the water reservoir for the region. And it is the main agricultural resource of our country in terms of herding and cattle breeding. Our country has been suffering from the post-Yugoslav trauma, and it is a never-ending transition since the end of Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. Since breakdown of Yugoslavia, we managed to build only a fictitious democracy, despite the fact that the party in power for 3 decades is named Democratic Party of Socialists. But in reality, power is in hands of one man, eternal president for more than 30 years, Milo Đukanović, and people around him. And we are witnessing decades in which public interests are completely neglected under the pretext of privatization processes. In reality, we have wild privatization and plunder of public goods. That is the real face of that famous term, transition in the Western Balkans. Our country is the first country to proclaim an ecological country through its constitution. However, we are witnessing numerous examples of violence against nature, pollution, uncontrolled construction and destruction of the sea coast, uncontrolled logging of centuries-old forests, and destruction of dozens of vital rivers with drinking water due to the construction of private mini hydropower plants. Literally, rivers are put in pipes and riverbeds remains dry. In the end, we were faced with a plan to use our largest pasture at Sinjajevina Mountain as an international military training ground. This stunning decision was done without any real public discussion or consultation with local and academic communities, literally behind the back of its citizens. The fake public discussions behind which the decision makers are hiding were only formal political party gatherings as a group of like-minded people. The local pastoral communities of Sinjajevina lived a life that many of us striving for. This zero ecological footprint and sustainable economic model proven through millennia. It is a life in the arms of nature. As a documentary filmmaker and activist, I have been researching this amazing place, tradition, and people for years before we realized that life is bringing this terrible twist. Rumors that Sinjajevina is to become a military training ground spread through the local pastoral community back in 2017. That was exactly the moment when Montenegro became a member of a NATO alliance. At that moment, a study to protect Sinjajevina had already been done by Environmental Protection Agency of Montenegro. We were just waiting for the proclamation of the protected area, but it never came. Instead, information about the need to form a military training ground was shyly leaked through the state media. At that time, it was emphasized that this would be a training ground for the needs of Montenegrin army, and no mention was made of the international nature of it. However, when it was announced that the training ground would occupy an area of hundreds of square kilometers, which is completely disproportionate to the Montenegrin army of around just 2,000 people in total, it was clear that there was a much bigger plan behind. The Association of Local Pastoral communities, activists from Civic movement, Save Sinjajevina, and several other NGOs began a series of protests during 2019. In the same year, a local petition was launched, and around 6,000 signatures we collected in favor of stopping the military ground in Sinjajevina, while just 3,000 is the minimum necessary for the Montenegrin government to accept an issue into debate. But instead of dialogue, government had an ignorant attitude. Moreover, the protesters were publicly called enemies of the state. Faced with the complete arbitrariness of the government, we realized that this case must be internationalized if we want to save nature, people, tradition, and fundamental agricultural potential of our country. And in 2019, we established a contact with an international group of scientists led by here present Mr. Pablo Dominguez from Toulouse University. Despite protests and the petition, the government made a decision and declared the military training ground on the 5th September 2019. It was immediately followed with new protests, but only 3 weeks later, the troops from the United States, Austria, Slovenia, Italy, North Macedonia, and Montenegro held the first military training on Sinjajevina meadows. Half ton of explosive was dropped that day, and the International Military Training Center was officially opened in the presence of the representatives of foreign armies. In November same year, Mr. Dominguez managed to present Sinjajevina case in UNESCO headquarters in Paris and in European Parliament, as well as European Commission in Brussels, explaining the millenary-old biocultural value of Sinjajevina and the current social and environmental crisis. Thanks to this presentation, in February 2020, we had a meeting with the Parliamentary Committee for Stabilization and Association of EU and Montenegro. And at that moment, EU delegation asked nations' parliament to guarantee protection to Sinjajevina lands and culture, but this was not taken into account either. In 2020, we further strengthened cooperation with international organizations. This resulted in over 100 NGOs from the country, Europe, and all around the world supporting our struggle. I would mention just some of them, such as International Land Coalition, ICCA Consortium, Common Land Networks, Land Rights Now, Oxfam, Avaz, and many others. On the 6th of October last year, the International Save Sinjajevina movement launched an Avaz petition, replicated after for further impact by Land Rights Now campaign. Just in a few weeks, petition was signed by almost 10,000 people. This petition is still available to be signed, and we would appreciate very much if you can do it for us. It all happened just 10 days before we were forced to set up a camp for protesters in the high mountains, a camp that lasted 51 days and prevented military exercise with combat artillery shooting. But now I would like to give a floor to Mr. Milan Sekulovic, who will tell you more about our struggle last autumn. Milane, please.
Thank you, Peter. Hello, everybody. My name is Milan Sekulovic, and I am, like Pablo say, the son of the Sinjajevina. So I will speak about our struggle last autumn. So taught by our experience from 2019, when military exercise was suddenly organized without any adequate announcement, we feared that something similar may be happen again. It is important to say that because annually activity plan of the Ministry of Defense 2020, which is public document available on the government website, did not contain any information of military exercise on Sinjajevina. However, our fears and suspicions come true when low-profile military patrols appear on the mountain to tell some herders that they should leave the mountain before October 15. We emphasize that there was not any public announcement of the planned military activities at that moment. Only punctual, intimidating visits to lonely herders. After representatives of the herders give the statement in the media announcing those unofficial orders given by the military patrols, the Ministry of Defense publicly announced the military exercise in October from 19 to 23 at the Margita location. Only at that occasion it was at last said that there will be a combat artillery shooting, and minister invite representatives of media and NGO to apply for accreditation and attend the mortal shelling on October 22nd at noon. Herders and activists immediately made the decision to occupy the said location at any cost. So we decided the date, it was 16 October, and call all citizens of Montenegro to stand in defense of this unique and precious area. On October 16, 3 days before commencement of this exercise, about 150 Montenegrin citizens gathered in the Margita location on Sinjajevina. There were cattle breeders from mountain and surrounding valleys, activists and other citizens from surrounding towns, but also from all over Montenegro. Prominent people and activists invite the people from their communities. The result was a large group of people gathered around the fire next to one empty tent, like a mark for the Protestant camp. At a truly democratic session, a decision was made that the protest would be held until all danger was removed at any cost. The first morning, the camp was covered by snow, but no one hesitated. Thanks to the selflessness and solidarity of many people, primarily representatives of the local communities, but also other activists and citizens, food and firewood were provided one day for the other. We agree on a strategy in case the police and army appear on the mountain. We emphasize that this was a peaceful civil protest, and all our planned strategies and tactics were peacefully and based on our knowledge of the mountain and the firm determination not to leave it on the mercy of irresponsible government. On the first day of the planned exercise, the military didn't show up. Police patrols and the military helicopters occasionally monitored our camp from the distance, but there is no dialogue or meeting. Again, they ignore the will of the citizens and wait for our fatigue, cold and harsh condition to drive us off the mountain. After the first week, it was clear that this situation could last for longer, probably until the establishment of the new government, but that process was very slow because of a delicate political situation in the country. At the truly democratic assembly, we arranged shift of guards. People came and went from the mountain as best they could. Some, however, decided to not leave camp at any time. Our protest from the planned 7 days was long 51 days, and because of that, the reason for that is waiting for established new government. During the protest, a significant contribution to the civil disobedience was given by the intensive usage of social networks. In this way, we were able to spread the news and the reports from the spot with an internet connection and contain points of the mountains. Also, we have a great media coverage. We have a support from some civic from a lot of journalists, and also we have opportunity to be part of most watched TV shows in the country in the first day of the protest, and to confront the arguments with the representatives of army. That was first time we have dialogue with representatives of the army. Unfortunately, today, more than 10 months later, we still have the same problem. Sinjajevina is still military training ground, and new Ministry of Defense first time last year say there could no be military activities on the Sinjajevina. But now, a few months before, we have the announcement from the same ministry, and she say that they still considering the possibility of using a part of Sinjajevina as a military training ground. It seems that we are still far from the final and positive solution. That is why now, more than ever, we need the support of progressive force around the world, and we need all of the help necessary to prevent our territory of life to turn into a territory of the dead and destruction. So it's our request, please help us to save Sinjajevina. And this is it for me for now. And now I give the floor my colleague and friend, Persida Jovanovic, and she is a daughter of the Sinjajevina. Persida, floor is yours. Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Thankful Anne for the opportunity to speak here today. I will say something more about the next steps for our campaign. In early December last year, the new government got in place. The new defense minister, which was from the party that is associated with the European Green Party, immediately called for the dismantling of the camp, saying the military training exercises on Sinjajevina would stop, at least for the time being. So that was the end of the first phase. It was felt as a huge victory, but while the minister's words show good intentions, and they're very welcome, they're not yet legally binding. Now in 2021, there is still no protected area that ensures that this never happens again in the future. And different ministers, especially Minister of Environment and Defense, are still denying a meeting with Save Sinjajevina on this topic. And there's a need for international pressure to make a law that will definitely cancel the current law that grants this territory status of military training ground, and there's a need to create a new one that will make a protected area that is co-designed and co-governed with the local communities that are using Sinjajevina. Because if not, the military can go up anytime and legally use the mountain as a military training ground. The new government and the new parties in the government are still working with the EU to converge, and they need pressure to make this happen. The Minister of Defense and the Minister of Environment are who are the most relevant for the case of Sinjajevina are no longer answering our calls, but before the election and during the camp, they were supporting us. They even came to see us up in the resistance camp at almost 2,000 meters of altitude to say hello and shake hands and get their picture in the newspapers. But now they're not picking up the phone. So Save Sinjajevina and its allies around the world need to make some noise now. We are preparing a big festival of Sinjajevina for the month of May that will be held in the capital of the country to draw attention to the case of Sinjajevina. And if still nobody receives us, we will continue rallying in the streets because we have enough patience. We also need to create, again, a great campaign, and which will be mobilized with the help of all of you, because some poor farmers were going to get bombed and they could not do anything about it. And Sinjajevina is a jewel of culture and biodiversity, and it is scandalous. It is the whole world that should be scandalized, not just a few hundred of families inhabiting it, because it is not only a Montenegrin heritage, it is a world heritage that has reached to us through millennia. So please help us to make this change happen. Thank you. And once more, I want to express gratitude for this precious prize and for your recognition of Save Sinjajevina efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Everyone is cheering. Thank you, Persida. Thank you, Petar and Milan and Pablo, and everyone who has worked with you there. We're going to be hearing a musical presentation from Ron Korb shortly. I just want to encourage everyone to support the efforts of Save Sinjajevina and of Nonviolent Peaceforce and of Peace Boat. These are ongoing. There is a petition link in the chat for Save Sinjajevina. There's a link to the video that we showed. You can share these. You can tell everyone you know about these award winners. The purpose of these awards is to make this incredible work better known. You can also donate anything you're able to fund these 3 award recipients, and we will be sharing those funds among them. We're going to be going to breakout rooms very, very shortly. I'm sorry we're running a tiny bit late, but first we are very, very privileged to welcome again the music of Ron Korb.
Thank you so much, David. I really found this presentation was just so informative, and the piece I thought a lot about, even as we were doing this, what piece I should play at the end. And I have a piece called Sans Regret, and it just, for me, I just feel that, yeah, I hope we don't have regrets, but certainly everyone here has done incredible sacrifice. And with that sacrifice, of course, they've taken personal sacrifice away from their families, etc. And there's certainly a lot of sadness that I think you've all seen. And there's certain things that you know that you can't unknow. And anyway, I hope this piece is somewhat relevant. It's called Sans Regret.
Beautiful, Ron. Thank you. Everyone is clapping, but they're muted. Wonderful. Worth the event just for the music. Terrific. We are going to now at last be breaking into 3 breakout rooms. Actually, there will be 2 breakout rooms and this main room. And if you wish to speak with and ask questions of Peaceboat, stay right where you are. If you wish to go and spend some time with Mel Duncan and Nonviolent Peaceforce, go to that breakout room. If you want to go to talk with everyone from Save Sinjajevina, go to that breakout room. There will be a link you'll find probably at the bottom of your screen for breakout rooms, and then you click that and then click the one you want to go to if you want to go to one. And if that fails and you can't figure it out, just say in the chat which breakout room you really want to go to. And Rachel Small, who knows how to do these things, will magically transport you there. And you will be in that breakout room. And if you're capable and interested, you can spend some time in one breakout room and then in another. And we will let each of our 3 amazing award recipients be in charge of each of their breakout rooms, and the rest of us will visit them, and they can last as long or as short as needed. So please proceed. Thank you all for being here. We look forward to some good discussions.